And now that is a little more quieter around here. It's crazy looking at this. It's only got 2 taillights instead of the 3. It also has the center exit exhaust. So that's cool. They're about to be starting the class in just a moment, I guess. A little tour. So we're going to be following them along with that tour. And we'll see what they have to show us and you guys watching. What's going to be around the Saleen Technologies building.
Your first time stepping on the throttle is your faster, and then it goes slower because the batteries heat up too much. What we have done is the way we've done the aerodynamics on the Teslas is we run more air flow through that so you can keep the charge higher to actually have a longer longevity here at top speed. We also changed the gear ratios. I'm changing the gear ratio so it will accelerate faster, and being from the yesteryear on this deal, some of us still like sound. So when we do change the gear ratio, we'll cut them differently, and that will then emulate a noise to accelerate. So you sound like you have actually a supercharger when you get on the throttle and to do it. So it depends on what our customers want. But this is again is part of the automobile and the vehicle transportation. I had the pleasure last week of going to San Francisco, and I did my first experience with a company called Waymo, which has no driver on it, and that was amazing. I videoed it and realized, you know, wow, this is the future. However, you still need a vehicle to do it, and so what you're doing today and learning will have, you are the future. And everyone talks about writing code. Well, where the real value is going to be is how you actually take it and make something with it. So with that, when we will start with a tour here, what we call our Black Label 302. It still uses no electric. It's all V8 American style horsepower. We put a supercharger on it. The normal Mustang comes with 480 horsepower. We increase it by adding a supercharger up to 800. And what's nice, again, the technology that you're learning about is that it used to be a carburetor and points and plugs. Because electronics has made it to where the timing of cylinder, the 8 cylinders on this deal, you can run so much more efficiency and much more power, which is what allows us to get up to 800 and still have it idle correctly, have it to when I turn on the air conditioner, it works. All of those are the things that technology today, and that's what you're learning in school. We're always looking at improving the vehicle. And so we start with a base Mustang, which is like the white one here. On this, the Ford builds are very base. But we ask ourselves, how can we improve it literally in every facet? So first of all, we'll come on and we'll do the suspension. We will do different springs, different shocks, different sway bars, different bars to help with the coupling of the front to the rear, and some stiffening as well, so that we have a better foundation to actually work on the car. Then once we decide what we're doing suspension wise, then we will do all of that have a direct effect on what we're doing on the efficiency of the car. The biggest change that we've done really from the 80s, but it has now morphed, has been in the aerodynamic development. And this is no way, is we've taken 5 inches of frontal area and shrunk it. So you can see here on how much we've taken 5 inches in doing that, and then at the same time, the way that the airflow through the engine compartment and out through the hood becomes very efficient. And what does that do? That basically makes it to where I have less wind resistance, but at the same time as I'm bringing the air through it, I get more downforce. And I'm able then, by adding a splitter to the front, I can get maximum downforce, which gives me more control over the car. Then, if we move over to here, we will see that I'll carry the same theme that we've done all of our wind tunnel and our CAD work through our side skirts to actually make it to where as the air goes through the car, up, over, and underneath the car, it also becomes very important down the side of the car. And if we take it from there, we come back into balance the car through a actually rear diffuser that's very functional, again, underneath, and the way that it actually distracts the air coming up to give us more downforce. But because we've done such an efficient job on the front of the car, we actually have to have a wing on the back of the car to actually give us the downforce. Otherwise, the front would always stick. As soon as I went around the corner, the back end would oversteer, and that would actually make me lose control. So we spent a lot of time on the development of the wing and the side plates on the wing for doing that. And we prefer doing a wing. A wing is where air flows above and below. It's much more efficient. You get less drag, which means I go faster, but I get more downforce at the same time when I need it. And that's why we do that, as opposed to a spoiler where it would just come off the top. And doing that, it's not as efficient as what I can achieve with the rear wing. We also, again, part of what we come around the back here, we also have run into a center exhaust system. You have the quads on our white and yellow label, but we've gone back to kind of a signature where we're using a center exhaust. And again, that helps us a little bit with the aerodynamics of the one thing that we won't walk over, but before you leave today, is our black label truck. It's the same concept on its aerodynamics, but we have what is called a blown diffuser. The exhaust actually enters into the rear diffuser there, and having that airflow from the exhaust actually helps create the downforce for us on the truck as well. And these are very subtle changes that it seems like you look at, but they make a big difference, especially when you're driving. When you just have to be driving down the freeway to actually know how that you can actually feel it, because the vehicle will be more responsive and a lot more predictable and a lot easier and safer to drive because of all of these things. The interior. We put the latest in Alcantara in the seat. Not enough so it's hard to get in and out of a racing seat or a street car, but we also have enough grip, and the way that the bolster is done allows you to sit and comfortably drive the car. On the steering wheel, we use the Alcantara, which is basically the same material that we do on the race cars, which gives you a much better grip, and it's much easier to hang on to the wheel. One of the changes that we made here from the base car is we've also increased and we've added a dash to it. If you look at the face,
and that dash is huge.
It has 2 iPads. So we've given it a little more purpose so that your concentration can be put on from the driving standpoint without any distraction.
So that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes that part of it. Start over. But we'll do another encore when we do a walk around on this. But so on all of our vehicles, we have all of what I call the fluid. We do the suspension, we do the aerodynamics, we do the interior on this, and of course the drivetrain. On the drivetrain here, as I mentioned, we put on a supercharger. It's a twin screw supercharger. We have 3 types of superchargers today. We have a centrifugal, which looks like a hair dryer or looks like a turbo. We have a roof style where it has 2 screws in it, but the screws are identical. So they blow air into the engine, but they're 2. What we use is a twin screw supercharger that actually has 2 different screws. There's a male screw and there's a female screw. So while it's turning at its RPM blowing air, it also intertwines, which compresses air. And if you were paying attention in your physics class, what happens when you compress air?
Pressurized.
Yeah, it pressurizes, and what's the byproduct of that? Do we know? Well, heat. We generate a lot of heat on doing that. So what that means now is that the radiator and the intercooler become very important when you're using a twin screw, but you generate too much heat. But the efficiency of the actual twin screw supercharger by far is much more efficient than a turbo, a centrifugal, or a root style. And that's why we've always preferred to use that type of supercharger. And it gives you much better throttle response in driving the vehicles. There's cheaper versions out there on this, but you don't get the same satisfaction and you don't get the same efficiency as you do with a twin screw supercharger. So that's why we've always been able to do that. And Europe, where fuel economy and the price of gas drove it, is where you tend to notice, especially with Porsche, a lot more of a turbocharger, which isn't quite as efficient, but you get much better fuel economy with it. On this deal, because I want to take you over into our we have two businesses. We have what I call the Saleen signature business, which is where we take the Mustang and the F-150 truck and the Bronco, and basically re-engineer a lot of that and put my signature on it. The other business that we have is what we call original cars, where we build and design the ground up for the cars. And we'll go in now for the original, where we'll talk about our supercars here. So if you follow me, we'll head on in.
It's got little Mustangs on there. It's sick. It's like the different years. Just now saw that. That's cool. Carbon fiber all over this one. Just now saw that too. It's good to be looking back and forth, but I guess now we're gonna be heading in. I know this probably will be a long video for everybody watching, but if you guys are interested in Saleen Industries, well, that's what this video is all about.
We have done a lot of cars in the past on this. A lot of people are not familiar maybe with some of our background, but we were the company that Ford reached out to when we had to design and build and manufacture all of the Ford GTs, 40s, in 2005, 2006. We manufactured all of those for private label for Ford Motor Company on this. And the designer of that car, Camillo, is here. He's one of our celebrities here this weekend on here, and you'll get a chance to meet him and certainly ask questions on our activity. Yeah, so I can you hear? Am I? Yeah. So we have, these are our S1s. It's our complete design. The chassis, the body, the interior, and 100% of the engine is our own design of the car. It's a aluminum chassis. The body is 100% carbon fiber for lightweight. And the engine, though, is a 4-cylinder, and it's a single turbo. What did I just say about the supercharger? What we've done, because of the weight on this power to weight ratio, we designed a 2.2 liter inline Ford on this for more of a global car that produces 450 horsepower out of 2.2 liter. And in doing that, we've innovated a number of different things. One of the things that you'll see more of as we get into production is you will see where our casting of the aluminum block we've done in 2 parts, and the way that the parts come together, the 2 parts of the block acts as the carrier for the crankshaft. And by doing that, I'm eliminating, like on the V8 on the bottom of the carrier for the main bearings and where the rod bearings go on the crank, on the main bearings of what? We've eliminated that by making it the actual aluminum block to be part of that, instead of having the holders for the crank. What that allows us to do is I can use long bolts, and I can torque the aluminum block a lot stronger. And what that means then, I can use the aluminum block as part of the chassis for giving us a much more rigid chassis, which then allows us to have a much better handling vehicle than what you typically have done. And so that's one of the things that, from an innovative and thinking, that we look at is how we talk about improving, you know, the breed or the technology in doing that. Then we come along and we spend a lot of time. Initially, we will do our design. Then we will go into CFD, which again is computer fluid dynamics on this. Then after we do that, we will do scale model wind tunnel testing, just like Formula One or everything that you read about on this. And that will then take that with the nuances, and then eventually we will make it to full wind tunnel testing. And then, but the most important thing that we've been able to do really from the turn of this century is what is called coast down. And coast down is where you take real world, you accelerate the vehicle to a certain speed, 80 miles or 100 miles, and you actually see how far it will coast. And that will help prove the technology of the refinement of the aerodynamics in a real world situation. And so we have done a lot of that, and because of that, we have the ability to coordinate the sensors when we do that to the computer, to the CFD. So a lot of the technology now is almost driving it similar in concept to what AI now does when you want to write a letter. There will be an option on the street depending on how fast you want to go down the 91 freeway and not brake going off one of the off-ramps on this. But this is actually the street version of the vehicle, and again, it's the same body. It has the same layout of the interior that we have on this, but it has all the features and comfort that you would want to have in an everyday car to drive. We've looked at making this a car that is fun and everyday driver. So we have storage in the front, we have storage in the back, so you can actually get some luggage or groceries in that. The way that we're incorporating, we recognize that I think the leader in the technology of the touch is Apple. So what we've done is we're just piggybacking to where your Apple and your works well off of the screen in here, because we can't do a better job of that. We'll concentrate on the driving experience, and the entertainment will let them handle that aspect of it. The air conditioning works really well and has a very good sound system in it, so you can be stuck in the LA traffic, you know, on Friday night on the 91, trying to get out of town and still be comfortable and enjoy driving the vehicle. We were looking at basically coming out with when we introduced the car before the coronavirus, we were looking at it to be between $100,000 to $110,000 on it. Since then, though, with the inflation, I think by the time we get to the market, it's going to be closer to $130,000 to $140,000. So, and obviously, $140,000 car is not an inexpensive car. But when you look at the competition, because the car only weighs 2,600 pounds and it has 450 horsepower, its power to weight ratio means it will embarrass every Lamborghini, every Ferrari, and every McLaren at a fraction of the price. And most importantly, it's all American made. So that is part of the strategy that we are looking to bring it into the marketplace. And like we do in racing, improves the breed. In the development of the car, having 20 identical cars in the street car race at the same time covers every aspect of the car that will go wrong, from suspension to braking on this deal to the engine.
140 grand, it's crazy.
Drivability, and of course crashing. I always joke a little bit. Blue S1 up in Seattle at a professional race on this, and with 40 cars, they made me start at the back of the pack, but I won the race, so it didn't make any difference. So I still obviously enjoy driving. As I mentioned, this is our 25th anniversary of the Saleen S7. And the Saleen S7 is the most successful supercar to date. In the respect its racing pedigree has won at every major racetrack in the world with no exception. And I'm talking from Shanghai, China, Mount Fuji, Japan, Laguna Seca, Daytona, Sebring, Watkins Glen, Silverstone, England, Barcelona, Spain, Imola, Italy, Nürburgring, Germany, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Bahrain, and we finally won the 24 hours of Le Mans in our class. And we have more race wins than Ferrari, Lamborghini, and McLaren combined, all by privateer teams. So to say that the S7 was a overachiever would be an understatement in that respect. But we designed it from the get-go to be the ultimate. We started in 1999 and debuted it up at Pebble Beach Concourse in August of 2000. And it we designed the chassis, which is a 4130 chrome moly steel on this, and then we have it with the honeycomb. Do we have any? Carbon fiber at the turn of the century was just coming out of yeah. So these are the honeycomb panels that we bond, and then some riveting, but it's the bonding and the lightness, and you can feel how light the panels are on this to actually have the strength. And we have almost the same chassis strength as what a autoclave carbon fiber tub would have. And again, you have to remember this is 25 years ago technology that holds up very well. The reason we went that way is that practicality on it. If the car is in an accident, if you have a carbon tub, you're throwing the car away. Yeah. With our car on this deal, you can actually cut it and repair it. So it has a lot longer and practical use in that respect. The body is 100% autoclave carbon. It's very lightweight.
What?
You can see it here and see how light.
Oh no.
And it is stronger than steel. We designed it, again with our thinking, more at Le Mans when you're going over 200 miles an hour, and let's say you have a problem at the end of the Mulsanne Straits, there's a cement wall there. Well, we wanted to make sure that the driver would survive that head-on crash, and so that is very strong and holds up very well. You also see all of the carbon work that actually gets done in building a supercar. We also have is the roll cage and the body sit well inside the car. So when we had to go and do crash testing on this, my initial crash testing, I actually had to crash it 16 times. Not that it was unsafe, is that under here we have the, here you can, we crashed, we have a crash box that absorbs, and it took me 16 times to get the absorption to actually absorb it right, but I can tell you at a 60-mile head-on crash, you don't even get into the wheel well. You can actually drive the car back up and drive the car away with it. Inboard, when you do the side impact requirement, when you do the side impact, requirement. You sit in over 8 inches in the interior. You don't actually have any intrusion either. So, and because I'm using chromoly steel as a full cage that you don't see under it, rollover was not a non-issue on this deal. You could have a dump truck drop on you, and it still would save you from a safety fuel in doing that. We spent, though, as we approached the new century in 2000 on this, we realized that aerodynamics was going to be probably the bigger driver of transportation and performance. So we spent a lot of time in the wind tunnel on the development. Now, I did not have a big budget like Ford Motor Company or Chevrolet on this, but I did have a little bit of knowledge, and I went to Europe. And in going to Europe, the most advanced was the Formula One technology. So I hired some aerodynamicists from Formula One to help me look at the aero, and then we ended up going to the University of Scotland at Glasgow, and they had a rolling plane wind tunnel. The advantage that I have, and this now comes home to you guys here, the advantage that I had here is that during the day we would be on the rolling plane with the scale model S7, looking at it, getting all of the data. Then at night, the students that were taking auto shop and physics and all the other related were doing the calculations that we needed to have done, so the next day I could make the changes and do it on something that we could afford with the help of the students to actually help design and build the car. And that, again, has served us well. We initially, on the design, made it to where it would have only come back to where the street line is. We ran a full under tray. We also have the under tray. When you get a closer look, you can see it's only that, but when you come back here, we're out almost a full inch on this, on the under tray. And I will tell you that at 250 miles an hour, you're glad we have that, because that's what gives a lot more stability to how fast the car and its capabilities will go to it. Of course, like I told you with the S1, we designed the engine. It was an all-American V8 style, which has been around since the 50s on this deal, but it was our aluminum block, our aluminum casting that we put together on this, and we knew that the advantage, as opposed to the European, which is what the other supercar, whether it was Ferrari or Lamborghini or McLaren, end up using very large engines. McLaren used the BMW and the F1 on this deal. The Ferrari engine is a very big engine to get the horsepower. The American style V8 on the opposite side is a very compact, and we redesigned the FIAD, the front engine accessory drive on it with the pulleys, in a very short period or a short extension with it. We run a dry sump oil pan, which means that you don't have a big oil pan to go through it. It pumps the oil through it, so we get a shorter, and that allowed us to put the engine in the lowest and the furthest end on the weight transfer for it, which was a big advantage. And when we hit the track, as I told you, when we hit the track, all of the European competition, whether it was Ferrari, Maserati, Lamborghini, or whatever, would stumble going through the chicanes on it, where we would come and we'd just go right through it as it was not a non-event. And again, this is part of what Europe and the rest of the world had not been exposed before, of what an American V8 style and doing the horsepower. On this particular one, because it was a 7-liter engine, which is where the name comes from, is the 7-liter, the S7 on it, but in American speak, that's 427 cubic inches. And so we had an inherent advantage when we designed the supercar against all the other type of supercars that had been built to that, mostly from the European endeavors. It passed the McDonald's drive-through test, and that is what we would go into McDonald's, we would pull up through the drive-through, we would order a #1 quarter pounder, and we would then supersize it, and with the electric windows, we could actually get the whole drink through the window. Ferrari, Lamborghini, you couldn't even attempt to do that because the windows didn't go all the way down from that. Now, we have no cup holders, but I wasn't worried about that. I just wanted to make sure that we could get the drink in and doing that. We also had, at the time I had all male engineers, but I had to do the high heel test. So I involved my wife to make sure that the ladies could drive it in high heels and use the clutch without any problems, and we were able to pass that test too after numerous suggestions. It also, because of the front and the back on this, it actually holds a lot of luggage. It actually holds more luggage than the convertible Mustangs that we have out front, is I can actually put in that. So we wanted to make sure that it was fun and you could use it for a weekend trip or across country, whatever your needs were in doing that. So the going price for these cars now is 1.8 million, and so that by any is a lot of money. But when you think about it, that we're competing and beating Bugatti or all the other supercars that are $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, it becomes a very good value in doing that. And so this year, look on our social media of our event up at Pebble Beach and honoring these cars, and we'll have some fun here showing the European counterpart what an American supercars really are all about. So with that, I think we'll adjourn. So you got a little taste of what we do on the signature car and with the supercars. So any questions? Or
how did the Ferrari and Lamborghini and all these people take to you guys racing and beating them? Did they interested in your car? Or were they like, it's America too?
Well, I will. Is everyone awake? You want to hear one little story here? So, how many people have seen Ford versus Ferrari? Okay. Well, we actually have Saleen versus Ferrari. And the Saleen versus Ferrari is when we started racing the cars. The FIA Racing Series had one of the racetracks we went to was Imola, Italy, which is Ferrari's home track. In honor of that occasion, Ferrari decided that they would take both the Enzo Ferrari and its sister, which is the Maserati MC12, which is the Enzo Ferrari on steroids, and they would debut it. This was back in 2004. They would debut it at their home track here for the competition. In honor of that, they decided that they would invite all of the media in and had a big three-ring circus on it with hospitality, tents, and everything. And they took their Formula One team to actually run the two cars. And this is when Michael Schumacher was dominating the Formula One scene on their second driver. Mika Salo was the second driver. He was their lead driver in the new MC12 on doing it. And they brought everyone in at Imola. And they had I remember I was in Europe at the time, they had a great big main tent area that everyone had it. And to put it as they brought in famous Italian chefs to serve everyone the famous Italian food. they actually had a orchestra. They're a full orchestra with violins and cellos on doing it, and then they also had a supermodel runway fashion show that they put on to entertain everyone while they would show Ferrari's dominance here in racing. And conversely, we had one team that was from Germany that showed up in a Winnebago, and they had a hibachi on the other side of the grid. But the race day came, and as it turned out, Ferrari was on the pole. We had a Saleen S7 second, a Saleen S7, the German team, third, then the two Maseratis, and then the rest of the Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and Porsche on this for the race at Imola. This was a endurance race. It was a 6-hour race, which required 2 drivers. The day of the race, Luca de Montemezzello, who was the head of Ferrari, he took over after Enzo had passed away on this deal. He came, and I tell you, you thought that the Pope had arrived, because the throngs of people came up to watch Ferrari dominate on their home track with their home crowd on European Sky TV network on doing it. The race started, and the Ferrari led for about a dozen laps. Then the one S7 and the 2 Maseratis came to the front of the pack, and they kept going around. We got down to the last pit stop, ready for the last hour, and I remember I'm watching in the garage on the TV, and I'm watching Luca here, the head of Ferrari, has his driver standing over his helmet, ready to get in on his deal, and he's pounding on his chest, saying, "You better get out there and win. We didn't bring everyone here to lose on this deal." So they put in their best driver, and on the last pit stop, all 3 cars came down pit lane. We put in the driver change, put in fresh tires, filled it up, and now it was a sprint race on who had the fastest car to the end of the race. And I'm proud to say that the Saleen S7, we lapped the one Maserati, and we finished 45 seconds in front of the second one, winning the race. And Luca then had to get up after the race and apologize to everyone that had come, that they didn't win the race, and that they were no match for Saleen. And the next day, the Italian newspapers across the headline had the Ferrari's worst loss of the year, and the other headline was Ferrari, no match for Saleen. So that was a very proud day for the S7. That was in autumn of that year. I did get a Christmas card from Ferrari, from Luca, and I thought, wow, that was very sportsmanship of them, showing that there wasn't any hard feelings of us wrecking their day on this deal in the sun. After that, though, is when I got the contract, as I mentioned earlier, to build the Ford GT40 for Ford. I decided that as I'm setting up our plant in Detroit, I wanted to tour the other, what I'll call smaller manufacturers, supercar manufacturers around the world. So I booked a tour. I went to England. I went to both facilities at Aston Martin. I went to Lotus. I went to Jaguar. I then went to France and went to Bugatti. I went to Italy. I got to Lamborghini and opened. And then my last booking was at the Ferrari plant. I got to the Ferrari plant, walked up to the gate, announced, that we're here for a tour. The attendant fumbled through and said, "I don't see any reservation." We thought, well, there's a mistake. We called back here to our PR departments to say, yeah, we had an appointment this time to come in. And we went back and forth on the deal, and they go, "Well, we're sorry, Mr. Saleen, but no can do on this deal. We do not allow you in the plant." So I have been to the Ferrari plant. I've stayed at the front gate. I've stayed at the Red Planet Hotel, which is a catty corner, and I've eaten at the Enzo Ferrari Cafe, but I was not allowed to go into the Ferrari plant. However, as the world goes around, as we were completing the final tests and certification for the Ford GT, we needed to verify the top speed of the vehicle. At that time of year, where was the best place to do it? As it turned out, the Pirelli test track in Italy at Nardo was the best place for us to do the top speed test. So we sent over a Ford GT, a red and white one, with the instruction with the driver to see how fast it goes, and they completed that test on it. It was 205 miles an hour, which was ideal. After the test, I then asked our driver, which was not far from the headquarters and the main gate at Ferrari, to go ahead, drive down the street on this deal, stop in the front of the gate with the Ferrari, with our supercar, our American supercar on the deal, rev the engine and let out the clutch, lay 2 black strips right down the Ferrari way, and give them a salute that they would remember. So that is my Saleen versus Ferrari story.